This is my first spaces, so thanks for inviting me. Thanks for having me. Um, Thank you, Jason. That was just brilliant. Um, I know that a lot of your thinking, like my own, was shaped by the Sailor series, by sailors, I guess, just analogizing money to energy, which really seems to be the through line across all these different dimensions, right? Like human beings, clearly, we're physical. Um, But as you know, there's a great quote by Tesla. He said, actually, if you want to find the secrets of the universe, then you should think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. And this is something Peterson goes into a lot too, that what we really see at the furthest reaches of science today, like especially in quantum and whatnot, is that we see this infinite flux of like interacting patterns, right? There is no stuff in the universe. It's all energy, all of it, even matter, right? Matter itself is frozen energy. So I think what's happening with Bitcoin is that it's kind of like a gateway into this deeper ontological reflection. We're really trying to get to the bottom of things in a very new and interesting way, but it's in that contemplation and in the implementation, it's somehow um, becoming like a self-fulfilling prophecy in a lot of ways, which is super interesting. So I'll try to just speak to a few things that I've been looking at on the physics path, which this is, again, I credit largely to Saylor and Jason, your work as well, that just really starting to look at the world in terms of energy. And if we think about civilization itself, it's indistinguishable from increasing the flow of useful energy. This is electricity, this is running water, this is food availability, this is economization of any human action, effectively. That is civilization. That's what we're doing. That's what trade and innovation are, right? They are force multipliers for human beings. And so, therefore, anything that contributes to additional energy throughput or additional flow is inherently good and civilizing, right? We are creating uh, more with less. We're accomplishing greater results with less efforts. So, by reason, then, and anything that's interrupting to that flow is actually taking the sustenance of others, and it's something that's intrinsically destabilizing. So, I even think we're so caught up in this fabric of nationalism today, where we think we need these imaginary lines drawn all over the planet, and that's just how human beings will get along because that's how we've always gotten along. I view this as some kind of like perhaps it's a limiting framework. It's a limiting geopolitical framework. Maybe it was necessary to bootstrap ourselves to this point of the digital age or something like that. I think how Nietzsche has this quote about, in order to be free, you have to be a slave at some point. Like you have to progress through slavery to achieve freedom. So perhaps nationalism itself was some form of servitude we've been evolving past for a long time, right? Like clearly it's better today than it was in the days of ancient Egypt per se. Um, but it's not. It doesn't mean that it's something that has to persist forever. There is this possibility that I think Bitcoin's really throwing light on, that we could evolve past everything we've observed historically. So just in the physics sense, it's like maximizing and increasing the flow of useful energy. That is civilization. That is how we lower time preference. That's how we create wealth. Interrupting, dividing, or segregating these flows, right, where someone tries to take sustenance from others, that's the opposite. That's taking. That's decivilizing. This is raising time preference. And again, to tie it back to Austrian economics, time civilization is the macrocosmic reflection of our time preference. The more civilized we are, the lower our time preference, and vice versa. So basically, I mean, it seems pretty fundamental to me. Everyone who prefers poverty over wealth, which is everyone, no one prefers to live in poverty. Knowingly or unknowingly, they want, embedded in that want is the want to channel more energy, consume more fuel, or in a nutshell, live more freely, right? To be able to satisfy your basic needs: food, shelter. You can work your way down Maslow's hierarchy with less effort. And this then frees you up to be more human, to be more civilized, to pursue higher aims, artistic, spiritual, or otherwise. So um, I want to read, and this is just interesting to me that it's so like this concept of freedom being embedded in the physics of reality. This is something that's not just human, like it's in nature. Nature is evolving towards greater freedom. I want to read this quote or this excerpt from a book titled "The Physics of Life." All right, quote, "Life is movement that evolves freely in both animate and inanimate spheres. Alive are all the freely changing flow configurations and rhythms that facilitate flow and offer greater access to movement. When movement stops, life ends. When movement does not have the freedom to change and find greater access, life ends." So this is the life phenomenon. It's everywhere. It's united in the inanimate realm, like rivers, lightning, snowflakes, and the animate realm, animals, vegetation, society, technology. And so this phenomenon we call life, we try to draw this bright line between organic and inorganic matter. It's all around us. Everything's alive. Everything's flowing towards greater freedom. And so the life phenomenon, it's older than the biosphere, right? It's almost like Bitcoin has reintroduced us to this fundamental natural law of just honoring the freedom of the individual creates the best outcome for the collective, something like that. So I'll pull this down into the economic sphere a little bit. Capital, right? Capital is something that we could say is defined by its ability to accelerate us towards the attainment of an aim. Maybe another way to think about it is that it also increases the option set of things we can do. So if you're a caveman and you wanted to go from New York to LA, you're not going to do it, right? It's just not there. The technological realities are not there. You probably spend your whole life trying to make the trek. But in the modern day, we have this sophisticated roundabout capital production process that gives us things like airplanes. We can do the flight in 4 hours, right? So capital, and we said earlier that increasing the flow of useful energy is indistinguishable from civilization, is indistinguishable from what is good. Capital is that which provides freer flow of useful energy. So capital is good. Capital accumulation is good. Capital is the fruit of free behavior, right? Free interaction. So good meaning that the design is evolving towards greater energy flow and greater freedom, then the physical measure of a good idea would be the increase in human movement that it enables. So good ideas basically become reflections of additional options for action. Again, with a caveman, right? He has the option now to fly in 4 hours versus spending his whole life trying to go New York to LA. So Bitcoin, I mean, we can talk about this for thousands of hours and not run out of things to talk about, but I'll try to say one line here. It's perfecting the movement of individual self-interest, propagating individual self-interest across an inherently antagonistic network of market actors by virtue of being perfectly mapped onto the thermodynamic realities of energy, right? It's like the ultimate lubricant for the economic engine, something like that. And I think this is why it's so fucking mind-blowing, because we're harmonizing ourselves to deeper reality through contemplating and implementing Bitcoin, perhaps. And if you consider meaning in like a mathematical sense, it's an isomorphism to a deeper pattern of reality. So you've detected a deeper pattern and you've started to harmonize to it. And so far as we can see, everywhere in nature, it's evolving freely all the time. But so fiat then, right, this idea of what an authority says being true, instead of what is discovered to be true. It's a distortion or a divergence from this fundamental ontological reality. Like, because some guy with a big stick said so does not make it fucking real. It means that we're living in that guy's lie now. Once anyone says, and this is not just money, this is the law, this is any declaration from authority that's trying to supersede discovered reality. So I think fiat is this like pathology we're dealing with. It infects a lot of things. I'll focus on property rights, right? Private property rights and the other fruits of common law traditions like English common law, the ancient Roman law. These are all opposite to fiat. This is not what somebody said. This is observing the patterns of human action across the broadest timescales and extracting what is useful, the principles that are useful, and encoding those into your socioeconomic system. When we corrupt money, right, all it's doing is violating private property rights. So it's by fiat. We are diverging from reality. We're corrupting the relationship between the agent and the arena, right? Which is, to tie this back into physics, we could say this is to corrupt the relationship between physicists and physics. And I've spent a long time talking to Weinstein about this. I think many of us would agree, the divergence from hard money is at the bottom of much corruption in our socio-economic systems and institutions. So corrupting money like this, corrupting property rights, it's disintegrating our ability to interact meaningfully. It's something, it is an actual pathology. It's not an analogy. It's an actual fucking pathology. And so if we want to get back to reality, it's like we have to honor reality and acknowledge reality. And the fucking reality is every human being is individually self-owned. They cannot, it's an inalienable right, if you want to use the term right. It's an inalienable quality of human existence. You can't even give it away. I can't even give you my willpower or my consciousness or my ability to think. I can't do it. I do not have the ability to exchange it. It's inalienable. And so Bitcoin is just that. It's just acknowledging the reality of life, liberty, property, these principles we've discovered and thought about and talked about for so long. And it's just crystallized it into this technological implementation that appears to be an incorruptible social institution. It's like the wisdom of money or the savior of socioeconomic reality for humanity. And it sounds wild and crazy and cosmic, but I think it is. So I'll drop it there.